Hello and welcome to Gooners in the USA. Mike, what kind of a mood are we in today?
We were supposed to be three of the fellas, but we're just two of the fellas today because of some technical difficulties, audio problems. And as it turns out, our expected guest for today, Andy, aka Ginger Fella, doesn't know sign language, and so it would not necessarily have been the podcast that we had wanted, just with the verbals or the visuals and not the verbals. So we're gonna put Ginge on another week, probably 2 or 3 weeks from now, and get things sorted out by then. So we're going to save all your good questions for him as well. So it's our 99th episode today, Andy, also known as our 97th consecutive final episode. So you think we'd have sorted out how to do this by now, but
You would think.
you would think. Next week for the big 100th, though, we are anticipating a stellar guest who you all will want to make sure to watch.
Yes.
Yeah, let's just say it'll be a dream come true for us to talk to this gentleman, and we should have a confirmation later this week. So yeah, my outline today is completely up to shit because it was all based around talking to a guest that we're not able to have today. So let's just get right into the game then. 3-2 loss to Chelsea yesterday or Saturday.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think when we did our preseason or preview show, we had discussed, what we thought would be a good outcome from the first two matches, and I went back and kind of listened to that segment, Mike, and it appears that we were both thinking this could potentially be the outcome of 0 points.
You went back and listened to our podcast? That's a first.
It is a first. It is a first. But no, we both wanted, we were both like, well, we can get 6 points. We both wanted 4, but there was that conversation of what happens when there's 0. And, I think you put it best today. What we're expecting from this team doesn't happen in a month. And we lost the first match arguably to the best club football side in the world, and some defensive mistakes and playing against a good opposition. We just couldn't get into that game for more than half of it, and it sucks. But Chelsea are a good side, and it's a terrible way for a new manager to start his reign at a club that's not in turmoil, but doesn't have an identity. Doesn't have an identity at this moment.
Yeah, and we'll talk about kind of the large scale picture of where we are right now in a minute, but kind of locking in on the game, we always usually start with the lineup, and it comes out, and surprisingly to many, no Torreira in the starting lineup, no Lacazette. So, the things that everyone kind of said, okay, well, we're graduating game by game, and these things are going to happen now. Nothing. So the pub erupts with questions about Iwobi and Lacazette and Mkhitaryan being in the lineup instead of Lacazette. Guendouzi starting again instead of Torreira, and I'm always saying how clueless I am about tactics and lineups. So I try not to get too vocal about it, especially before it pans out, because I don't like looking like any more of an idiot than I already do most of the time. But I'm wondering, why are these two guys in the starting lineup for this game? Andy, who scored our 2 goals?
Yeah, I think that Unai is at much questioning the starting 11 as we are. He's still trying to figure out the pieces. We never get to see what's happening in training. I think we had mentioned it on our co-pod that Iwobi is a natural winger, so maybe putting him in the starting lineup works best. I would have preferred to have seen Lacazette over Iwobi, but you got to give credit where credit's due. Iwobi took his chance and did really well with it. But you're right. I mean, I think that he's still figuring out the best starting 11 for this team. Lucas is a weird one for me, and I only can think it's language barrier, Mike. That's the only thing, especially in a big match.
Not fitness, but language. You think
language? Absolutely, he should be ready. I mean, he didn't take that long of a break after the World Cup, and so
is his language better in the second half than it is in the first half?
It must grow into the game.
When the adrenaline kicks in, the language starts. He's all of a sudden he's completely fluent in English.
Right.
Or Spanish or whatever language the team talks these days. But
yeah,
I'm taking credit for the second goal, by the way, or actually no, for the first goal, because my Uber, I mean, I'm a committed Gooner. I take an Uber 30 miles to the pub, which isn't cheap, but it's worth it because, can't be driving back from the pub. And my Uber driver is Armenian, as I find out, because he's listening to all kinds of Italian opera music. And I'm like, so what part of Italy are you from? He's like, no, I'm from Armenia. So we start talking about Mkhitaryan. And obviously I got to the pub. I'm like, well, Mkhitaryan's going to score. It's a sign. And so it happened. So that was guaranteed money. But the first 30 minutes of the game, Andy, on a scale from 1 to -69, how bad is our back four right now?
It's -69. It's like we haven't missed a beat from them. What's that?
This is the high-tech.
Oh, I was like, that's even. It's just. It's like we haven't missed a beat from last season.
Yeah, not in a good way either.
No, I don't know what it is, Mike. It's just these stupid errors. I haven't yet, like, the Mendy goal was a beautiful goal, but I haven't yet seen a goal where I'm like, you can't stop that. Every goal we've conceded, you could point at one or two players and go, we could have stopped that. There's 2 or 3 moments you're like, we could have stopped.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here to basically declare that I have the exact same level of quality as Arsenal's combined back four. I suck at football, and I weigh a combined 50 stone. So, I mean, it's basically me or them. You could get the same result. But, the first goal, it's easy to see that Pedro was being played offside. I mean, he was way in no man's land at that point, and I think that was by strategy. But when the ball doesn't go to him and it goes outside instead, is it not incumbent on the defenders to recognize that they've got somebody that's well behind them, and all of a sudden that guy's a threat instead of a non-threat because he's offside?
Yeah.
I mean, they were just so slow to recognize that.
I was going to say the inability to recognize or being slow, and then if you're mentally slow and then you're physically slower, you're fucked. And when our center back is going to lose a race to the BFG, you can't mentally be slow and then try and make it up with the physical side of things.
Our center backs will lose a race to the GFP.
Yeah. Example with Bellerin, he's got the speed where if he does make a mental mistake, more often than not, he can cover it with his speed.
Depending on who he's up against, but yeah.
Exactly. But 9 times out of 10, he's able to get back and do something. And, our center back pairing can't do that. And so I'm a little bit wary of why we keep trying to play this high line and this offside trap, because it doesn't work unless you have speed in your side.
Well, now it's been 2 games. Do you think maybe this is the type of thing that after 10 games you see that that's being coached out of them? I mean, we wouldn't really know up until this year, but I mean, are they capable of having that coached out of them, these particular players?
Oh, yeah, I think they are. Socrates is a weird one because he never knew the old system. So he's going to come in and it's all fresh and new. It's going to take more time for the Mustafis and everyone else. So I don't know, Mike. I really hope. But again, look who you're playing against. I truly feel if we were playing the West
Ham, against Pedro.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're playing against
Pedro de Or.
Yeah. But we're playing against World Cup caliber players. And it's really hard to grow a new system when you're having to face those types of players. Next week, we fucking better smash West Ham.
We're playing against one World Cup caliber player next week.
Jack Wilshere didn't go to the World Cup, Mike.
I know, but shouldn't
he have? You're talking about Andy Carroll.
There you go. So the second goal, before the second goal, obviously, was one of the brightest and most frustrating moments of the game for us, which is Guendouzi carrying the ball forward, sick through ball. Absolutely. I mean, that was an Ozil-esque at his best through ball to Bellerin, who, cuts the ball back perfectly for Aubameyang, and then Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm hearing Aubameyang getting a lot of crap for having 2 poor games to start the season, and sure, by his standards, his finishing has been dreadful. I'm not ready to give up on him yet. I'm not ready to sit him on the bench yet. I mean, the guy can score 3 or 4 goals in any particular game that he wants to if he's on, and I mean, it's not like he had a poor preseason.
It's
So
unlucky, Mike. It's unlucky. I mean, when you see that in slow motion, there's a slight bobble before it hits his foot, and like you
and
said,
world class strikers usually can overcome those types of bounces, but not 100% of the time.
no, and it's unfortunate because that goal goes in. It's completely different outlook on the match.
Well, and the second
And
goal for Chelsea would have never happened because the
no,
flow of the game was, they'd be kicking off, not
yeah, yeah,
not
and so
counterattacking.
it's heartbreaking as well that you go from basically the high of like, okay, we're back in this to being down 2-0. And like you said, the buildup was perfect. There's a lot of great play, but you give that opportunity to Aubameyang, he buries it 90% of the time. I mean, it's just it's unlucky.
Yeah, it's completely unlucky. Well, and it was unlucky when everyone else on the team did the same thing within the next 20 minutes. But
Right. I mean, we could have easily been up 4-0 or 4-2 at half. Easily been up.
yeah, did you see Guendouzi's reaction? The tweets going around about his reaction.
Was he pissed?
When Aubameyang skied that over the bar, Guendouzi fell down to his knees and slammed the turf like 3 times. And I had like an interesting set of reactions to that. The first one is like this is like, I'm in love with this guy. He, first of all, the pass, then the passion to just be so fed up that it didn't get, I don't think he was, he wouldn't have had a negative thing to say to Aubameyang because he knows the class that Aubameyang has, but he was just so frustrated by it that he overflowed with emotion. And then I started thinking, isn't that what I used to fucking call out Alexis Sanchez for doing? And there's a difference. There is a big difference because one of them is a 19-year-old who loves Arsenal. The other is a dog-nonce shit piece of Manchester crap who was all about himself all the time. So, I'll keep myself in check a little bit because I don't want to be hypocritical about showing passion on the field being selfish versus being passion. But there is a difference.
There is a big difference. And we used to see the Alexis Sanchez throw your gloves down because his pass didn't come his way. Yeah, there's a huge difference. One wants to be here, the other didn't. What's nice is that we have that passion and that there's someone in this side who wants to see Aubameyang put that in the back of the net, and his expectation is better. But Mike, again, look at our first 2 opponents. Here's the problem with Arsenal, right? The fixture list comes out, and everyone's like, "Shit, we have City, Chelsea," and then a couple popular people go, "Great time to play them. No one's back. People aren't back for the World Cup." And then everyone rides that tail of, "Okay, this is the perfect time to play those 2 teams." No, it's not. We have a new manager. When was the last time a manager came into the Premier League and absolutely crushed it? It's very rare that it happens, especially when you're doing a huge overhaul.
The closest thing you can say is Conte, but he didn't crush it from the start. He crushed it starting the week after we beat them 3-0.
Right. And look at Guardiola, his first season. I mean, it takes a long time to build that foundation. And, these players are world class, and Aubameyang would bury that. But you got to keep in mind, Mike, he still is learning a new system. His run may have been off slightly. He may have been a little bit, there's so many things going on, but that's unlucky. He buries that 9 times out of 10. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, no, and I think we'll see it. He'll come good. But that did lead to the second goal, and
it did.
And Mustafi was the one who was made to look foolish, but I'm not so sure that was all on him. Socrates was teaching philosophy on the wrong side of the center stripe, and I mean, what kind of business are we running with this defense here? I mean,
it's not great. It's not great.
So it's like August 2017 all over again. It's August 2016 and 15. I mean, it's all familiar, but then something weird happens that I never would have expected. I mean, I was at my lowest point of this rebuild in the pub after that second goal went in. I'm like, we're gonna lose 6-0, and then something happened. Andy, what happened?
Iwobi turned from boy to man.
Boys to man. His East Coast family was
back again.
Yep.
No, you and I were just having an offline chat that we won't dive too deep into. But I do feel like the big thing with this team is there is that, I feel like last season under Arson we would have just rolled over, and I feel like this team has been given instruction as if we go down 1-0, if we go down 2-0. And I know as a coach, when I would say to my, if we do go down 1-0, everything stays the same. If you go down 2-0, this is where we start changing things, because you have to start looking at the match completely different, right? And I feel like we had that plan B on the pitch. And credit where credit's due, because last year we roll over and that game's over. This year we're seeing
last 5 years we roll over in that situation.
Yeah. And we saw it against City. We never gave up against City, even though they were clearly a better team. We never gave up, and and to take a positive from Chelsea, we didn't give up. And before you know it, it's 2-2 heading into the break, and we have momentum. We're on the front foot when we were down for 6.
I mean, so, I thought at halftime there was zero chance we wouldn't get a point out of that game based on just the fact that we had just had 20 of the best minutes, even though it only really resulted in 2 goals instead of 4 or 5. 20 of the best minutes I've seen us play in a long time.
But you look like you couple that 20 minutes with the chances that we missed.
Right. Yeah.
So
I was rather surprised. And at halftime, you see the most obvious glaring sub that you would, as a layperson, you would think would happen, is Torreira coming in for the yellow card at Xhaka, relatively maybe ineffective Xhaka, I guess you could say to an extent. And, it's just the shock around the pub again of this is the most obvious move. It never happens, and it just happened. Now, did it pan out? I've read some very interesting, comments about how, Xhaka, as poor as he's been defensively, was the only thing pushing us forward creatively, or not the only thing, but in his absence, we really offered nothing going forward in the second half. And it was surprising that we kind of sat back and let them boss the game in the second half, and ultimately we paid for it.
Yeah, every team needs a scapegoat. The third goal was definitely Xhaka's fault. But
he wasn't even in the game.
I know. It's just, here's the thing. Tactically, it wasn't working, and so we were being overrun in midfield, so bringing Lucas on makes a ton of sense. But you're right. I mean, the article you sent this morning where it broke down the lack of forward movement when Xhaka was out of the game, you can't deny or argue that. Statistics speak for themselves. It's always funny when Ozil has a piss poor game and someone's like, well, he had 98% passing accuracy. It's like, okay, well, if I sideways pass to you the whole match, then I'm accurate too. But you can't deny that when Xhaka left the pitch, we were not moving forward as good as we were in the first half. And so, again, that's another thing that the coaches need to go back and look at. And if Guendouzi's not going to give you that movement and that range, and Ramsey can't play because he's hurt, then you have to look at Lucas and Xhaka partnership, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways, but I don't know that you can have Guendouzi and Xhaka on the pitch at the same time anymore.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think so either.
And it's an interesting, because they've played on the pitch together for the first, for at least 3/4 of the first 2 games, and I think it needs to be either or. And right now, I mean, after the game he had against Chelsea, I was all for benching him against Chelsea. Like, just bring him along slowly. But I'm buying into the Guendouzi hype right now, because
here's the only reason I'm still not dick diving Mike is because he's so young. And when you look, okay, so we all know the glaring holes in Xhaka's game. He can't defend. He gets opened. He won't track back. Guendouzi is young enough where when a play is going forward, he will go balls deep forward, and he'll sometimes be in line or higher than Ozil. When you're a central midfield player, you can't do that. So he lacks that mindset of, hey, if all these players are forward, who's behind me? And you sure as shit know Xhaka is not going to be. So that's why I don't think the two of them can play. Now, if you put them both in center midfield and you have Lucas sitting behind, it's a different ball game. It's a completely different ball game, because now I've got that cover. But before, neither of them are covering. So yeah, you're right. There's just a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, and a lot of time to figure them out, honestly. I mean, 10 games. My mantra is 10 games, not 2. So,
but clarify that, Mike, because that's not, we could go 10 games and we could lose 2 more and we're playing like dog shit, or it could be 10 games where we're playing really well, just things aren't falling our way. Because any other given Sunday or Saturday we played Chelsea, the result could be completely different. We were just really unlucky, and we're in a good role now where we're coming off of that Chelsea loss, and I think Unai says to the team, it's unlucky, but now we're going into 9 points. This is 9 easy points we should win, And my dad called me after the Chelsea match, and he went, "Well, we're fucked."
because he's a West Ham
supporter. He goes, "I don't want to be on the end of he's like, you guys won't lose 3 in a row. It doesn't happen, So yeah, it's gonna be interesting, man. It's gonna be look, our friends on TV.
I say 10 games, not to judge the coach, not to judge the success of the reorganization and the transition, but anything that you saw in the first 2 games is not a trend to me. No, it can't be. Whether it's good or bad, it's not a trend. Alex Iwobi is not the reborn player that everyone is now calling him because of 1 good game. Nor is, I hate to say it, Mesut Ozil or Granit Xhaka necessarily dog shit because of the way they played in the first 2 games. So 10 games, you'll start to see some trends going, and I think you'll start to see some people maybe lose their starting position if they aren't cutting it. But there's 2 against top 6 teams, 8 against teams that are easily winnable, or at least should be winnable, and we'll see where we are then. And then after that 10th game comes Liverpool at home, and that'll be another test of a different sort. But to avoid being too agenda-ridden, I want to talk about Alex Iwobi for a second, because we know Arsenal people love themselves an agenda, and I just try to react to what I'm seeing on the pitch. So 2 things about Alex Iwobi, in my opinion. One, I think he's generally been awful the last 2 years since he started brightly a few years back. Not good enough, too coddled, has a lack of confidence to where his aggression is almost nil. And I've called for him to be loaned. I mean, I would have had him loaned to a team like Wolves this year. Somebody is not a threat in the Premier League and get some playing time. But the second thing I'll say about Alex Iwobi is, holy shit, was he good yesterday?
He was, and
he was amazing yesterday.
No, he really was, and he is the type of player that is going to best be suited under new management, because there was kind of, like you had just pointed out, there was this era of he's not good enough, and now he gets to prove to a whole new coaching staff how good he is. And honestly, Mike, I think the World Cup did Iwobi the best, because he didn't, I think we all expected him to be Nigerian's golden boy. Dude didn't really even play that much.
No,
and I think that was a shock to him, because he played a lot with their qualification, and then when the big games mattered, he wasn't in. And that might have been because with Arsenal last season, he was really poor. But I've said it, you've said it, and a lot of our fan base have said it. These players, for me, are not going to get judged until Christmas. I want to see what they can do under this new regime. I think that we're 2 losses in. We can maybe afford another 4 to 6 more losses to stay in Champions League, because 2 years ago 5 was the number. Last year was
to stay in continent. We're just gonna be shitting all over ourselves.
So I we can't afford to lose many more. But if you look at how we played the last 2 matches, if that's what we're building our base off of, Mike, it's not that bad. It really isn't.
No,
we were not that bad yesterday. We weren't.
I mean, we're bad defensively. That is a problem. That is a problem that has not been fixed from a personnel standpoint just by adding Socrates. It has not, and it won't be fixed probably until next summer.
Hey, but Mike, sorry to cut you off, but here's what I want to say. And again, I'm not comparing us to these 2 sides. But when you look at Real Madrid last year, who defensively were just woeful, they won the Champions League. You look at Barcelona from 3 or 4 years ago, when they were defensively just terrible, they won the Champions League. So you can win major cup competitions having a poor defense. You just need to get your final third grooving. Because I have we can outscore 18 out of the 20 teams in the Premier League.
And that's my point. I'm
Yeah.
saying that there are glaring weaknesses that we have, or as you like to refer to them as gaping holes, which somebody stole this week. I think somebody, oh, Schwinn. Yeah, thank you, Schwinn. I called him on it. But I mean, we have that. But in any transition, I keep hearing 4 transfer windows. Absolutely right. It's going to take 4 transfer windows to get this project going, and you can't deal. You know, we picked up spare parts, some of them may be very, very good spare parts in areas where we needed them. We didn't just push forward with, you know, a 75 million pound central defender, as great as that would have been, because it really is a bit early for that in my mind. So, you know, yes, we have glaring weaknesses, and it's just shocking me how many people, some of whom are very dear friends of ours, who are kind of overreacting, in my opinion, right now. I mean, just, you know, and there was, I said this the day that Wenger was sacked, and let's be honest, I believe he was sacked. I don't think he resigned, but whether he was or not, the day that happened, I said there's going to be something interesting that happens with the people who have considered themselves Wenger out. And as much as I thought he needed to go, I never really identified with that angry, get out of here type of attitude. But the people that are in that camp are getting split right down the middle into 2 other subcamps. And it's exactly what I thought would happen. You got your people who are actually practicing what they preached and are preaching patience. They look at this as a 2 or 3 or 4 year project after a 22-year project. And nothing's going to happen overnight, and they're kind of showing some perspective, whereas they didn't necessarily have the ability to do that over the last few years because they've just been beaten down by it so far after so many years. And then the other half, maybe it's a little less than half, are just already looking for something to complain about, and the woe is me. And some people are doing it more, you know, more whiny and bitchy than others, but you know, and they're honestly, it's kind of exposes you as someone who just likes to bitch.
No, totally. There always has to be an agenda. There always has to be negative. And it's just, that's the way the Arsenal fan base is right now. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to Twitter when we actually start winning and it's like a positive place. Because even when, you know, we won those FA Cups, it's only the FA Cup. And it's just like, you can't please everyone. But, you know,
I don't know that anything short of an invincible season is gonna reunite everybody together. And if that happens, you'll have to. And if that happened, we'd have people calling out like, "Oh, you didn't want change. You still." I mean, there'll be a controversy one way or the other. But it does surprise me how many people are. I mean, fine to pick out the negatives of our first 2 games because there are some glaring ones. There are some obvious ones, but to treat it like it's same old, and I'm not saying anybody that, but to treat it like it's a continuation and a sign of things to come, I think is a bit premature.
Absolutely, it totally is.
It's how you react to the things. It's not the absence of bad things happening that we need to be seeing right now. It's how we react to the bad things happening, and you can't even get that familiarity with how your team's going to cope with that if bad things don't happen.
Yeah.
So
I'm almost certain, Mike, by week 10. Is that your kind of point of contention? I don't think our defensive errors will be as bad. Again, look at the opposition that we're going to be playing, but they will be fixed.
I hope so. I mean, we got to find a way of maximizing. We got what we got as far as personnel are concerned. We have to find a way of getting the best out of them instead of getting the worst out of them.
But we know this regime and this management won't allow it to continue because we've seen historically Unai change the way his teams play. So unlike Arsenal, where it was just go out, tiki-taka, play, we'll beat them with skill. This manager is so different, Mike. So different. Yeah. So all will be good. But here's for me, Guendouzi and Iwobi yesterday were the brightest points in that match
by far.
And you know, we were unfortunate with that 3rd goal. Defensively, again, we just kind of switched off. But, you know, we got damn close to taking a point at the Bridge when we were 2-0 down, and that would have been a win in itself. And so, you know, if I'm West Ham, Huddersfield, Brighton, I'm kind of looking at Arsenal and thinking, shit, because things are going to change. We will turn this.
You're thinking, shit, they're going to knock us out of 16th place any week now. they're gonna vault over us. These 6-point games are gonna happen. Yeah, final word on this from me anyway is I would much rather 2 years from now look back and say, I'm sorry, I had faith, I placed it in the wrong place and didn't fucking work, and I'm angry and I'm annoyed, than to feel like an idiot for being so overly expectation impatient with a process that should, and be like, oh, looks like he knew what he was doing all along. I'd rather the first than the second anyway. So I am 100% optimistic and fully behind this team at this point. So I think we pretty much beat that into a bloody pulp. The one thing that I love seeing on this team is we finally have dicks on this team.
Mm-hmm.
I keep talking about dicks at the pub, and people are like, they're calling the police on me and stuff. But there was a bunch of us after some number of shots and beers at the pub after the game. We just had a whole hour-long conversation about dicks, and I mean, we have at least two. Torreira, I think, has the capability of being one. Lichtsteiner is definitely one. The guys like Costa and Arturo Vidal that like you hate playing against, but you respect them. Guys like, I guess, Pepe could be one. Sergio Ramos. You want those guys on your team, though. And if they were ours, they'd be our dicks. And I think we need to play our dicks.
Yeah.
And,
we need to whip them out, and we need to be slapping people around the field with them.
Yeah. And some people say, I asked, who's the last dick that we had on our team? And a couple people volunteered Jack Wilshere, but to me, when Jack was a dick, he was on tilt, and it affected the quality of his game to the point where it was a success to turn Jack into a dick because he was going to come off his game and probably either get a yellow or a red or make a defensive error or something like that. So I don't buy that.
There's fine margins of being the dick. You've got the Roy Keanes who want to end your career, and you've got the Patrick Vieiras where if you're a midfielder and he's coming at you, you get rid of the ball pretty quickly, right? And then it's always funny to me, Mike, because we'll go back to the whole Arsenal fan base. When we signed Xhaka, everyone saw his reputation of being that kind of hard-nosed, balls to the wall type of player, and then he racks up 3 yellow cards, and everyone's like, "How dare he?" Oh, and it's just
he was a sloppy dick, though. Lichtsteiner's a crafty dick, though. Lichtsteiner knows what he's doing and when to do it. That's the difference.
But even still, sometimes you need look at a sequence of play. Let's use Iwobi, right? Iwobi goes in and he gets tackled by Pedro, for example, and it's a dirty challenge. Pedro gets a warning. Xhaka will come in on Pedro and pick up a yellow. You got to keep in mind that Xhaka letting Pedro know, you fuck with one of my teammates, I'm going to fuck with you. So there's levels to what type of a player you are, and that's where I see Xhaka as and it was kind of with Wilshere. You fuck with my player, I'm going to fuck with you, and I'm going to make it very obvious because then it kind of sets the tone. It's like in hockey, right? You hit the All-Star, there's someone on that team that's dropping gloves. Because the All-Star doesn't drop.
The All-Star's not going to get his ass kicked.
No, exactly.
There's a receiver guy.
There's a bruiser on your team. So I feel like Lucas is going to be a little pit bull. I feel like Liechtenstein is going to be a pit bull. Socrates is already kind of shown hey, you push us around, we're going to push back. It's great that we have it. We just need to hone that in and figure out who's going to do what on the day. You're never going to see Ozil square up to someone in defense of another teammate. It's not the type of player he is, but this is an exciting team, and I agree with you, Mike. I would rather put all my balls in the, hey, I really thought that this would be the right management choice and the right coaches, and I was wrong. But we've got, dude, it's going to be exciting.
It just occurred to me a question for you, which just popped into my head. As poorly as it would impact our performance on the pitch, would you sign and start Vinnie Jones and Eric Cantona right now, just to give them, just put them in favor of somebody else, just to see what would happen?
I wouldn't start them because then we'd be playing with 9 men 5 minutes in. But if you're going to save 2 substitutes for the 70th on minute, why not?
That's when, again, with the hockey reference, or it could be a baseball reference, and now we've just lost our entire international viewership. But when there's a game that's 8-1 or 7-1. And things are just getting a little chippy, something's about to happen. That would be you see Cantona and Lichtsteiner and Vinnie Jones just warming up on the sideline. Some of them are like 57, 80 years old, whatever, but you can't help but ignore that. So I like the hard nose, and I'll take Lichtsteiner's lack of physical prowess and speed compared to Bellerin any day of the week when somebody on the other team needs to be taught a lesson.
Yeah.
So
and there's enough mistakes happening in matches with Bellerin that I think West Ham is the perfect opportunity to put him on the bench, and Xhaka wasn't having a great game yesterday. Statistically, we see maybe it's a more like-for-like substitution, but I think that's a big wake-up call to a World Cup international player of, I got to step it up, and I think maybe Bellerin needs to see that as well. And so I wouldn't be shocked if we do see a big change coming for West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Bellerin was all right going forward in this game for once, but defensively,
hey, Mike,
again.
Iwobi, based off of how he played, he should be in that starting 11. He really
I
should.
agree. He's earned himself another week. For
another
sure.
week, at least another week.
Only one, but yeah, another one for
and
sure.
then if he does it again, let him. It's like Guendouzi, right? He hasn't done enough for us to go, well, he shouldn't be playing.
Right. No,
he's bowling, and
I've been proven wrong about that so far. Again, only 2 games, not 10. I'll judge Guendouzi after 10 games too.
Yeah.
It's hard not to get excited, but I'm not going to pull what I did last year and buy his jersey. I bought Kolasinek's jersey the afternoon of the Community Shield because I was so like in love with this guy, and I spent $120 on an enormous Kolasinek jersey, and I'm just embarrassed to wear it around now.
Why? Dude's been hurt. Give him time.
My jersey, the guys in the back of my jersey are Xhaka, Kolasinek, Ozil, and who's the other? And Lacazette. So I'm not having the most success with the people I put on the back at the moment, but so definitely going out and getting Guendouzi and Iwobi now after yesterday. Is there anything better than watching Manchester United lose to Brighton?
Man alive. I mean, they look way worse in shape than we do.
I did not expect them to beat Leicester in the first game, and they did. So I'm like, well, everybody kind of that's supposed to be on the downslide came out of that first week looking good, but they sure didn't. I mean, I feel like it's the implosion is getting ready to happen. I mean, it's a dumpster fire, and they lose at Brighton a lot. I mean, I was there last year for an Arsenal loss at Brighton, but this was diabolical.
So, Mike, if you look at and you compare Arsenal to Manchester United week 2, would you rather have 3 points from their first 2 games or 0 points from our first 2? Because when you look at how we played against City and Chelsea, whilst we walk away with 0 points, it wasn't abysmal and it wasn't terrible. You look at United and the 2 teams they've played, both probably going to be fighting relegation, and they only got 3. I mean, I look at us and I think we're in a way better position than Manchester United. And I dislike Paul Pogba very much, but the guy is a ridiculous football player, and Jose is very close to ruining that for Manchester United. And I've said it, you've said it. We don't think he will be the manager by Christmas. And if you look at the way
I think he could be out by Yom Kippur.
No. But if you look at the way they played yesterday, when they were 2-0 down, they looked like us from last season. Their heads were dropped and their body language was like, we can't do this. And, they really, like, that penalty was a soft penalty in my opinion. It could have been called either way. But, to lose 3-1, 3-2 to Brighton, that's not good.
No, it's not. And, I mean, he's just ruining Marcus Rashford. He's ruining Martial. He's ruining.
And I said that
Shaw
8-10 months ago. Rashford would be destroyed under Jose. And yeah.
I mean, he's ruined more young men than Jared from Subway and Jimmy Savile combined. I wasn't going to say that, but I mean, it's disgusting. I'm not advocating this, but the 3 of them are just probably 3 of the worst people I know. But yeah, that again should be fun to watch, and they may well, and I actually think they very well might finish above us this season. But it's like last season felt like an awful season for them. But what were they, second, third?
Yeah.
You know,
Second.
their talent is such that they should rise above unless they have a Chelsea situation from 3 years ago with Mourinho. But they're dysfunctional. And would I rather have 3 points after 2 games, but the negative outlook, or 0 after 2 games and a positive outlook? Yeah, I mean, I'd rather be in our position right now.
But like Jose goes into that locker room after that match and he just rips them a new asshole. And when they're already down,
yeah, they're spending the last 30 minutes just knowing that like there's nothing inspirational that's going to come out of this. We're just going to get shit on.
Right.
What's the point in even trying? You know. All right, so user questions, and we're going to push forward every user question we got for the ginger fella to when we have him on, which will hopefully be sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So
I'm still saying that the reason that didn't work is because he's a redhead, and that's why he couldn't get his shit together.
Yeah, well,
I'm surprised he even shows up on camera. It's like, can redheads see themselves in a mirror? I don't think they can. I don't think they have reflections.
By the way, I've never noticed how blue your eyes are until we started doing these video pods.
Just drinking, everyone.
All right, so let's see. Expat Guna asks, is Carl Jenkinson the Gunnersaurus in disguise? Now, this is a joke, obviously, but it actually isn't that bad of an idea. I mean, whatever we pay the actual person that goes in the Gunnersaurus outfit, whether it's £100 a game or whatever it is, we could save that money because Carl Jenkinson, we're paying £40,000 a week to sit on his ass and not go anywhere. Put him in there. I mean put him in. If he's got to do something for the team.
Yeah. Yeah, he totally does. You know, it's funny because have you seen the Man City All or Nothing on Prime?
No, because I'm an Arsenal supporter.
So, grow up. It's an intriguing look into the real behind the scenes.
I don't listen to Oasis either.
It's the true behind the scenes of how a football club is run, and it's really interesting seeing the boardroom aspect and how they're trying to sign players, and it's really interesting just seeing Pep as a coach work. But it was so interesting because I thought about Jenkinson yesterday during the episode because their assistant kit manager or kit whatever, he's such an integral part of the team. And like Kevin De Bruyne was like, I actually get along way more with him because he doesn't think the same way I do. He doesn't see football the same way I do. And so I just have a closer relationship to him than I do other teammates. And I thought, that's totally Jenko. He's just that guy in the locker room that everyone loves. There's no kind of bubble over him like this is your expectation. Like he's just in there loving life.
Is he allowed in there?
I mean, I'm assuming he's allowed.
Like one of the kids of like one of the players, like now from this point on, you can't come in here.
Yeah, I mean, he probably gets told to leave during the actual important sessions, but everything else he's allowed.
When they're deciding which kind of sleeves to wear for the game, he has to leave the room. But I mean, look, I love Carl Jenkinson, but he's got I firmly believe, and I have no reason to believe this other than kind of seems to be fairly obvious, that we want to get rid of him, but he is in a position where he can continue to earn his wage packet every week and refuse a move. And no one is going to pay him what we're paying him right now. So he's happy to ride out his contract and probably leave on a free to go get $7,000 a week from somebody once his contract's over. And if that's the case, I mean, you can't fault him, but put him to work.
Put him to work. Put him to work. Make him, wave the big flag when we score a goal. There's a lot of things he could do.
Mavropanos yesterday was sitting with the fans in the upper level of Stamford Bridge, I think, on Saturday. So, I mean, Jenko should be the guy over the tannoy. I don't have my bell with me today, but he should be like doing all the odd jobs that we pay other people for, and we could probably save, thousands and thousands of pounds a week if we just made him be the utility man. So here's a tactical question. So this is obviously going to you from Jonas, our top quality Belgian user. Is Unai Emery going to have to abandon his favored high pressing game to suit Arsenal's current players because intensive running and closing down is not a natural trait of Ozil, Mkhitaryan, and so on?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think again we need to see it more. We need to see it against teams that are not as good with the ball. Closing down against City's defenders and against West Ham and Huddersfield is going to be two different animals. And so I would say let's go with your 10 games, Mike. Let's see what happens that 9th and 10th game going into Liverpool. Yeah, so it's a great question. I think it's too early to tell.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping you would take it there because, again, people are saying that they can't do the high pressing game, but it hasn't really been sorted through yet based on different levels of opponent. So, anybody would look poor probably trying to do a high press against a world-class team. Danger Dean, who I don't know what's so dangerous about him, but are you happy to not be a Man United supporter? I think we kind of covered this.
Yes.
I can't even imagine what life would have. I was very close to being a Spurs supporter just based on the fact that I was picking a team in London and I thought they played at Tottenham Court Road. I thought that's where the stadium was. I didn't know any better at the time because I had just moved there. So I'm like, well, this is closer, but Arsenal's on the Piccadilly line. I don't have to actually change.
Mike, if you had figured out that they were a Jewish team by nature, you would have been fucked.
I've said that a million times. I'm like, I didn't learn that they were the Jewish team until after I had left. And if I had known that, I would have been sucked into a life of misery. So, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Let's see. Tom Rosenhammer had a bunch of questions for Ginge, so we'll hold off on those. And we kind of talked about this a little bit, and I'll ask him when we get him back on the pod. But from John Horlick, if you're an Arsenal supporter and you gleefully listen to Oasis 24 hours a day and walk around whistling Wonderwall all the time, are you really an Arsenal supporter?
You're such a dick. You're such a dick.
What's your take, though? Is that am I overreacting?
Yeah, 100% you're overreacting.
I know I am.
For anyone behind the curtain, Mike has essentially said to some of his closer friends that you can't be an Arsenal supporter and listen to Oasis because they're from Manchester. But let's keep in mind that Noel Gallagher said that his kids would be born and raised Gooners because of his wife's a Gooner. And the location of which they live in London is essentially like the Hampstead Heath, where it's just pure Arsenal. So he said his kids didn't get to jump on the Man City bandwagon. They had to support their local team until they're old enough to figure it out. So got to give credit where credit's due. He's making his kids walk through this Arsenal bullshit that we're all walking through. That being said, I was actually in Milwaukee when Oasis were doing one of their last ever tours, and I had an Arsenal beanie bag thing on, and either one of the members of their band or part of their tour yelled, "Come on, you Gooners." And I turned around and went, holy shit. And they got ushered into it was a little place downtown Milwaukee anyway, and I thought, Oasis is playing there tonight. It must be someone English. But there were enough fans where I'm like, that had to have been someone in the band because there were just fangirls everywhere. It was probably Horlick and Tom.
It was probably
there. So maybe they yelled it to me. Either way, you're a dick.
Look, if you know John Horlick like I do, and you love the man, it's easy to just take the piss out of him. And
when I woke up and I read that text, I was like, who would even say that to a person?
I would say that to a person who I love very much. So
I think Oasis, that was the first CD, like the actual first ever CD I purchased.
I owned the CD. I mean,
such a great band.
Yeah, but yeah, fuck it. But I'm not watching that. I'm not watching that video, that documentary though. Fuck that.
Hey, Mike, it's been 3 minutes and 27 seconds that Liverpool haven't scored, and nor has Mo Salah. I bet those Liverpool fans are just going crazy. Did you know they're the greatest football team of all time?
I would rather be where we are right now with 0 points after 2 games than be dealing with what Liverpool's dealing with, not having scored yet in this game.
Or the lofty expectations of their entire fan base.
Yeah, if they don't finish second this year or higher, they are going to be fucked because
they'll just talk about the last European trophy they've won.
Yeah, that basically that outcome, second place or better, and at least one trophy this year has, and like a Champions League semifinal at least, that's been baked in already. Yeah. So if it doesn't happen, it's over.
Yeah.
I think this pod's been pretty much baked in. We're going to start to wrap things up, and I do want to I want to spend a few minutes. We haven't talked about Gooners versus Cancer yet, and it's continues to gather steam. We've got about another 3 weeks left before we wrap up this year's campaign and kind of get started on the next one. But I just want to shout out to some people. First of all, our fellow podcasters have been amazing. Andy and I have done like 4 podcasts in a week together, which is rare enough as it is. But 2 of them have been with other as guests or co-pods with Same Old Arsenal, Burkamp Wonderland. We've gotten mentions about Gooners versus Cancer from Chig at Gooner Eagle Eye, Clock End Talk Boys, Harry Simiow from Chronicles and a Gooner, and even one non-Arsenal podcast called Dinner and a Podcast, which is the one non-Arsenal podcast I listen to because I find it to be hilarious. And Sebi's on that podcast a lot. So we just really appreciate spreading the word, and in some cases more than that, donating proceeds from donations from their shows to the charity, which is just incredibly generous. So it means a lot.
Thank you, guys.
I hope I didn't leave anybody out. And then something that happened during the game on Saturday that again, it even with the bad result, it left me just completely gobsmacked, which is I checked Facebook at halftime and Twitter. I saw a tweet basically from the Arsenal Americas branch in Madison, Wisconsin, not far from where you used to live, I guess,
yep.
In Milwaukee, but it's a different branch. It's Madison, and they have 2 of the sweetest, most generous, charitable people running that branch, Liam and Andrew. They apparently did a pregame collection, kind of a raffle thing to raise money to see who would score the first goal of the game. And I don't know the details about how it was run, but what I do know is that they raised $170 and they donated the entire thing. I mean, it's already been donated to Gooners versus Cancer, and they didn't tell me they were doing it. They didn't. I mean, I'm in communication with these guys regularly enough that, if they were like wanting to make a big deal of it, they would have said, here's what we're doing, and promote it on Twitter, whatever. They didn't even tell me about it till the money was in the account, and that just really touched me. I mean, I was crying at halftime, and it wasn't until the hysterectomy in the 60th minute that I had that I kind of started focusing on the game again. So thank you to the Arsenal Supporters Club of Madison, Wisconsin. They've set the bar, and hey, if other supporters clubs want to jump on the bandwagon and do similar things, believe me, that money will go to good use, and we'd love to see that. So, thanks again, and want to apologize to anybody that was looking forward to seeing the Ginger Fella. It was just a clusterfuck of audio issues. Nobody's fault. We were this close to pulling it off, but we'll have him back in a couple weeks. For sure, because I'm very much looking forward to having him on. It'll be a good laugh. Next week, 100th episode. Stay tuned. It's going to be unless we have technical issues next week, it's going to be a hell of an episode for us.
It really is. It really is. It's going to be exciting, Mike.
Exciting. We're having Thierry Henry and Stan Kroenke on.
We don't ask. Yeah, fine. That would be.
And they're gonna actually French kiss on camera. They're gonna 69. They're gonna do the whole thing.
You have Stan Kroenke on, but you don't actually talk to him or ask him, and he just sits there.
Just sits there in that fucking suit that he wore for the FA Cup finals. Yeah. All of them. All right.
What a twat.
Anything else you wanna mention, Andy, before we cut this one off?
No. Let's hope we get 3 points post West Ham, and our conversation with he who must not be named is a good one.
Yeah, and I will also have some. If his availability is short, we may wrap around an end of it where I kind of recap my weekend, because this weekend I'll be watching West Ham up in New York with Lee Judges, with Mr. Lee Judges. And
you're meeting with Drew?
With Drew Thompson. I'll finally get to see his face actually like animated and moving instead of that picture of him on the Google Hangouts. Okay, now he's officially canceled our get together. And Sebi should be at the pub as well.
Oh,
Not to mention a few others that I'm really looking forward to either
that'll be a
seeing.
fun time.
Oh, it should be fantastic, and I mean, there's nothing got me more excited for the gathering with the judge than watching his naked beach reaction from you haven't seen this yet probably, but go on the same old Arsenal Facebook page or YouTube channel, and there's a video of Lee, who's on a cruise right now, sitting on the beach, appears to be completely naked. And giving his 3.5-minute reaction to Chelsea. So I mean, I'm gonna watch that every hour on the hour between now and next weekend just to get hyped up. So
I'll take a look.
Looking forward to it, and we'll see you after next week. Come on, you Gooners.